Hey everyone, let's dive into XRP, and I just have to lead with this gem right here. This is Brad Garlinghouse's actual response to Swift. So Swift just dropped an announcement saying they've created this prototype for a blockchain-based shared ledger they're planning to stack onto their existing infrastructure, and they're kicking things off with real-time cross-border payments. Now, my inbox has been absolutely flooded this week with people asking me about this. Everyone wants to know what this really means for the industry and where Ripple fits into all of this. And you know what? It actually hit me that I haven't been vocal enough recently about my perspective on who we genuinely consider our main competitor. I might actually dedicate some serious time to breaking down the competitive landscape in a future update. But look, I'm totally getting sidetracked right now. The truth is, yeah, way back in the beginning, we definitely looked at Swift as this massive competitor we had to take down. But here's what's really going on. Like while they've been busy just announcing a prototype, guess what we've been doing? We've been actively building out this incredibly robust digital asset infrastructure, evolving way beyond just our payments product into custody solutions, stable coins, continuous development on the XRP ledger, and a whole lot more through strategic acquisitions. Plus, we've actually done our homework on Swift news. And honestly, when you really look at it, this feels way more like a slick marketing move timed perfectly right before their huge annual conference, SIBOs, instead of being an actual groundbreaking product reveal. Brad straight up dismisses Swift as not even worthy of being called competition at this point, yet somehow people are going absolutely bananas over Swift creating a blockchain prototype. I mean, come on, it literally doesn't add up. And here's what they were saying at SIBOs. They're standing up there talking about interoperability. They're throwing out this idea that there's not going to be one ledger to rule them all. Listen to this.
Yeah, I mean, look, interoperability is the kind of crux of everything, right? As you said, there's not going to be one ledger to rule them all. And quite naturally, interoperability is the kind of area of focus from a community standpoint over the past number of years. We've obviously, at Swift, been doing quite a bit in this space. We've been doing this from a traditional financial infrastructure for a long time. Again, from a correspondent banking standpoint, various RTGS systems, CSDs, we're providing that connectivity from a communication standpoint. And now enter DLTs and all these different tokenization platforms that are taking place. We've done a number of experiments in innovation over the previous couple of years to demonstrate how you can have that same infrastructure provide connectivity and interoperability between the traditional space and the digital, the tokenized space, but also importantly between all the kind of new DLT platforms themselves. And so we've done a variety of different efforts. Obviously, we've been quite public around a partnership that we had with Chainlink from a few years ago and some of the work that we've done there, leveraging the cross-chain aspect. And so we think that there's a huge piece there from obviously a technical interoperability. But then to your point around standards, this is also fundamental, right? Part of why all these different systems today in the TradFi space work is because there's a standardized language and a standardized way of communicating. And that the same is going to hold true as we move into the digital space. And so there's obviously a piece around standards for smart contracts, standards for tokens. I think we're starting to see a gradual evolution towards what some kind of potential standards could be, just based on obviously adoption, and that's something that we'll continue to drive and be participating with the community. One thing I'll just kind of give a plug to: there's a demo that will happen tomorrow for a standardization aspect that we've been working on with a couple of large CSDs to cover some of the business taxonomy around these things and how various tokens could be implemented onto different technology ledgers, irrespective of what that technology is. It's something that I think the community is longing for, and there's a need. And I think the work is just getting started in earnest.
When he dropped that bomb about there not being one ledger to rule them all, listen, everyone's out here fighting about XRP versus XLM versus XDC, right? But here's the thing. These cryptocurrencies, they're all going to work together. They're all going to be part of this new financial system we're building. Look, XRP is obviously going to be moving massive amounts of money around the globe, but guess what? So is XLM, so is XDC. And that's exactly why you diversify across all these ISO cryptocurrencies, my friends. They're still dirt cheap right now. Can you believe it? Now, Vincent Vanco posted something that absolutely nailed it, and I had to share this with you guys. Even if Swift somehow built something in the next 3 months, which good luck with that. It would take 3 to 5 years of battle testing and serious rigor before any bank would even think about touching it. Check out this life cycle of how Swift has handled and will handle the Ripple competition. Stage 1. Ripple's not even a competitor, okay? We're 30 years old with 11,000 banks. Stage 2, denial. Ripple doesn't have a real product. It's just fake crypto money. Stage 3, threat mode. Wait, Ripple's a multi-billion-dollar player now, quickly gaining serious traction. They literally barge in first, right? And then what do? They go straight for Ripple's throat. They're rallying their whole banking crew to shut Ripple down, lobbying left and right, throwing the SEC case at them, all that messy stuff. Then step 5 kicks in. Adapt mode activated. Suddenly they're like, wait, we can pull off this blockchain thing too. Next thing you know, they're hiring these hotshot consultants to wave their magic wands. And what's the move happening right now? They're shouting from the rooftops, yo, we're in the game now and we're about to dominate. But then reality smacks them. Turns out this blockchain world is way more massive than they ever imagined. We're talking literal years just to tick all the boxes and run endless tests. Number 7 rolls around. Acceptance finally clicks. Now they're scratching their heads like, how do we wedge Ripple into our existing setup? So they start weaving Ripple directly into their whole messaging infrastructure. 8 brings growth and maturity. Swift does a complete rebrand and becomes RL Swift. All right, yeah, he definitely snuck that one in there for the laughs. But honestly, that's the exact playbook we've watched Swift run so far. And traditional banks follow this identical script every freaking time. At first, they're pointing fingers at crypto, yelling it's just for sketchy, illegal operations. But guess what's happening backstage? They're sneaking into crypto, pouring money into crypto, and then wait for it, they flip and start hyping up crypto the second they crack the code on cashing in from it. You really got to think about this. Ripple's been out here for over a decade, building all these rails, right? Like literally laying down the infrastructure all around the entire world for XRP to operate on. And now people actually believe Swift's just going to show up and create some brand new solution overnight. Come on. That's just not realistic, guys. We've come way too far at this point. The world is demanding real-time payments starting tomorrow. Not sitting around waiting 3 to 5 years from now, right? They need it fast, affordable, and totally secure as soon as tomorrow hits. Not 3 to 5 freaking years down the road. And that's exactly why there's literally no alternative to Ripple and XRP. Breaking news, everybody, Cardano's founder, Charles Hoskinson, is saying utility coins are going to experience their very own bull run. You've got to listen to this clip.
I want to get you to look into the crystal ball in terms of pricing. Where do you think Bitcoin is going? And link to that, where Ethereum is headed.
Yeah. So I think all the alts are going to enjoy a nice spike, but typically there's a lag. So Bitcoin goes up, it stalls, and then the alts come up, and then the market goes down, it reaches a new plateau. We sit there for a few years, and then we go up. Those cycles were retail driven, and they were every 4 years. But now that we have all this institutional involvement, we have things like the Clarity Act coming, you're going to have probably another 500 million to 1 billion users entering the space as the Magnificent Seven come in and they integrate crypto into their platforms. We're already starting to see the banks come in because of the Genius Act, and these create disruptions that are unpredictable because that's a different kind of capital than these retail cycles that we have. So in terms of price, I still firmly believe that Bitcoin's probably going to peak somewhere around 250,000 sometime next year. And
sometime next year is middle of next year?
Yeah, probably about middle of next year. It just depends on the macroeconomics.
And Ethereum?
It's hard to say, but usually you see a proportionality with those types of things. So I could see another 30 to 50%, but I'm the worst trader in the world, so don't take any financial advice from me.
So Charles Hoskinson is out here saying Bitcoin's going to keep running into next year, right? Like this whole cycle, it's going to stretch out way longer than we thought. But here's where it gets really interesting. Did you catch what he said about utility coins? They're gonna have their own separate bull run, guys. He's talking about a full-on utility run, and let me tell you, institutional money, it's coming, and it's gonna be absolutely massive, like way bigger than anyone's even imagining right now. So Gummy's making some really smart moves here, strategically stacking XRP because they're planning to work with SBI. There's a US application for an XRP spot ETF that's already in the works. The US dollar-linked stablecoin RLUSD just officially launched, and they're managing everything through staking and lending. Now, this image I'm showing you was actually translated from Japanese, but there's one really crucial thing I want to highlight here. It's about holding XRP as a strategic asset and setting up profit opportunities down the road through this SBI collaboration. They all clearly see the massive potential of XRP and where this thing's headed from here. They're even saying they're going to use it for transactions between users worldwide. Like, they know XRP is going to be the tool for moving money all across the globe. And that's exactly why they're building these strategic reserves, these XRP treasuries. They're positioning themselves right now for what's coming later. This intel's coming straight from Cyprus. And here's what a lot of people are missing. Retail investors are actually ahead of institutions right now. Most of these massive organizations are literally just starting to catch the wave on this technology. Okay? They're dragging their feet, slowly plugging it into their systems while they wait around for the regulators to give them the green light. But here's where it gets interesting. You've got two camps forming: the people who get in before the big banks pile in, and the ones who chase after them. Which side do you think you should be on? Yeah, exactly. Before the banks. And buying XRP today, you're still beating the institutional money to the punch. Wild, right? These mega institutions are literally sitting in class right now, studying the exact same lending, borrowing and looping plays that early DeFi legends have been running for years already. If you genuinely think they're just sitting on the sidelines ignoring all this, you're definitely not listening to the people who are actually steering this ship. This is your moment to make a move. That window of opportunity, it's closing fast. Like, seriously fast. We're talking inches away from slamming shut. It's been gradually creeping close for a while now. And you're already seeing it. XRP steadily ticking upward bit by bit, but mark my words, when institutions finally flood in, that vertical spike is absolutely going to lock out the average retail investor forever. So Jake Claver drops this bomb about XRP's major price action coming our way. And honestly, the news is going to make you squirm a little. Here's the thing. A ton of exchanges just won't have enough liquidity for you to cash out at actual market value. And with this insane supply shock happening, institutional buyers are going to be scooping everything up over the counter, while US retail folks, we're literally going to be stuck scrambling for scraps through ETFs and whatever else we can grab. Look, I get it. Everyone's sitting there dreaming that their XRP stash is going to turn them into millionaires overnight without lifting a finger. But real talk, I'm going to be straight with you. If you don't have proper custody sorted out, legit tax strategy, and actual wealth infrastructure ready before this liquidity event hits, you're about to fumble what could be generational wealth. Think about lottery winners, right? Most of them end up broke. And guess what? Most crypto millionaires are heading down that exact same path. And honestly, I completely agree with him. You're going to watch people cash out this cycle. And what happens next? They go absolutely nuts on shopping sprees, blowing through everything. Then boom, they're right back here buying XRP all over again, except now they're paying way higher prices. He's spot on about this. When it's finally time to sell your XRP, the demand is going to be absolutely wild. So picture this. There's going to be this massive wave of people all smashing that sell button at the exact same time, and boom, exchanges are going to crash again and again and again. We're not talking theory here, folks. We literally watched this disaster unfold. Remember last year when Bitcoin was just annihilating all-time high after all-time high? Coinbase turned into a potato, just constant crashes, and there's a real chance the liquidity pool won't even be deep enough for your exit strategy to actually work. This is why I crack up every time someone flexes like, yeah, bro, I totally nailed the absolute top number. You didn't. Nobody does, because here's the reality check. If your brain is screaming, sell now, this is the top, guess what? Every other person on the planet is having that exact same thought simultaneously. Then what? Exchange nosedives, price bleeds down a touch, and everyone's frantically selling while still delusional enough to think they caught the peak. But check this out. In past cycles, missing the top meant losing out on maybe a few cents, right? This cycle, brother, we're talking dollars slipping through your fingers. Imagine XRP launches to $50 and the entire world tries selling in unison. What's gonna happen? Exchange goes lights out, and suddenly everyone's dumping at $45 when they wanted $50. Back in the day, folks aimed for $1.92, but walked away with $1.85. See what I mean? But yo, when it comes to actually cashing out, dude, there's going to be tons of people turning into instant millionaires over the next few months, okay? But listen carefully, you absolutely have to manage that wealth properly. Because if you're out there blowing everything on some wild shopping spree, bro, you're literally going to find yourself right back here starting over. But if you strategically plan things out correctly, you could potentially never even have to mess with crypto again. Now here's my take. Maybe you hang on to a pretty solid portion of your holdings and let that cash actually work for you. Personally, I would never, ever sell off my complete XRP bag. Like, I'm committed to sticking with that strategy because I truly know how absolutely huge this thing is. And this intel comes from Stellar's Danelle Dixon, who was discussing privacy recently. They literally just covered this exact topic coming from Ripple yesterday too. So clearly Ripple and Stellar are executing the identical game plan here. Listen to this.
I think that the most important thing that we need to focus on is privacy. We need to make sure that compliance sticks, and we need to make sure that the underlying frameworks are all there for these assets that are available, and we need to make sure that there's usage and that it's not just volume sitting on networks. I think that's a really important piece of it. What we care most about is making sure that we're moving with the industry and we're pushing the industry forward. And that is going to be confidential transactions. That's going to be making sure that you're thinking about ZK proofs and how you can leverage those in transactions to make sure that the transactions are still as transparent as they can be, but you're protecting the users or the businesses on the other side. That is what traditional finance is going to want. They're already asking for it. And so we really need to focus on that. So I see a lot of that happening in Q4, certainly for us, and then also going into next year. I think that that's going to be a key play for making sure all of this works and making sure that the infrastructure continues to be leveraged by these institutions that I think are really changing the world in terms of bringing these assets on chain.
So that's the play they're running. Listen up, because she literally spelled out what they're after. Privacy, my friends. Institutions are desperate for it. Look, without proper privacy features, there's zero chance these big players are going to mess with XLM or XRP. Forget about it. The XRP ledger, the Stellar network for processing transactions, not happening unless there's privacy baked in. Here's the reality. You can't just broadcast everybody's financial moves out in the open like some kind of public bulletin board. But check this out. What really gets me excited is watching how Ripple comes out swinging with this huge privacy reveal. And then what happens next? Stellar jumps in with literally the same announcement. Come on now. I'm convinced Ripple and Stellar are working together in the shadows way more than most people suspect. Meanwhile, Japan's playing chess while everyone else plays checkers, and they're literally building the foundation for a digital yen, creating this massive interconnected global settlement network that ticks every single box for the IMF, BIS, and FATF requirements. And here's the brilliant part. You're watching RippleNet get adopted through all these partner companies instead of Ripple doing it themselves. Genius move because it sidesteps regulatory headaches while delivering that bulletproof, compliance-ready tech. So naturally, when Japan rolls out their payment pilot, they won't work directly with Ripple. They'll go through a partner company that's running Ripple's technology. All right, so the second those details get locked in and confirmed, you better believe I'm going to be right here telling you all about it. And this is precisely why I get so fired up about all these partners putting infrastructure in place everywhere. You know, I've been screaming from the rooftops that Ripple's got connectivity stretching across every nation on this entire planet, right? But here's what's really cool. Some of those connections aren't even Ripple's own direct infrastructure. They're running through Ripple's strategic partners, and that's exactly why I kept bringing you all that expansion news throughout the whole bear market grind. And look, while this expansion was unfolding on a worldwide scale, Ripple just kept building and building, dropping infrastructure piece by piece across the entire globe. I cannot stress this enough. When XRP actually lights up and starts flowing through all of that infrastructure, dude, it's gonna be one of the most epic moments to be stacked up in XRP. But until everything clicks into place, keep your cool, keep your head up, positive. All right, I'm gonna close out this video right here. Really appreciate every single one of you for tuning in and watching. I'll be back with you in the next one. Catch you later. Have yourself a fantastic night.